And we are back with an all-new episode of Keep It. Welcome to Pride Month. I'm Ira Madison III.
I'm Louis Fertel, or as the Pope calls our podcast, the Frocagine News Network. Come get your faggotness from us. Oof. Finally he spills. It's been so many years since they have done any truth-telling over in the Vatican, and I am really thrilled that that word has gotten around the way it did. Also, the context of him bringing this word up, which is somebody said something, I have no idea. And he said there's enough faggotness in the world of Catholicism already. Anyway, it was very baffling. But Frocagine, not since the movie Luca have I studied Italian this much. And it's really sticking with me.
Well, there were a couple of Frocagines in Luca, you know what I'm saying?
The creators deny it, but I saw a couple. Yeah.
For our Keep It listeners who will also be listening to me this same day on Hunter Harris and Peyton Dix's new podcast, we were also discussing this hot topic about the Pope and the Vatican. And what I'm really interested in story-wise is there wasn't like an audio recording or some leak. So what really happened is somebody afterwards had to have been like, sis, did you hear what the Pope said?
Where's their story? Where's that limited series? Also, do you know what I was acquainted with? So, okay, something that's baffling about this is, so Frocagine means faggotness, which I already am blown away by that translation. Do you know what the word, the actual F word is in Italian? Finocchio, as in Pinocchio with an F. How have I not thrown this word at, say, Timothy Chalamet and Call Me By Your Name? I mean, it's so useful.
When you think about it, Pinocchio is a little twink.
Oh, the twink. Please, down to the stance.
Twink, the number one twink.
Down to the walking.
And that
the
Island of Donkeys is, the Island of Donkeys is Fire Island, actually.
And San Francisco, if we're talking about donkeys. Yeah.
That's right. I don't know if we need a new Pinocchio, but I'm actually very interested in a queer Pinocchio retelling now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sorry. If his name is going to fucking rhyme with faggot, can we get in on this? I mean, it just doesn't seem that hard. It's like a poem. It writes itself. I also like that we're constantly we got into Dumbo last week and now we're into Pinocchio this week.
Yes.
We have lots of I didn't think that we had a lot of queer things to unearth here. I thought that work had been done, but I'm incorrect.
Are we Disney adults?
Oh no. I retire. I put myself out to pasture. Bury me under the Jungle Cruise queens.
Okay, well, speaking of old queens, let's talk about this Elizabeth Taylor shirt you're wearing, which for our listeners, it is a shirt that says Elizabeth Taylor, but it is in different colors, the pride colors, as it were.
Yes. So the Elizabeth Taylor estate reached out to me on Instagram, and it just says Elizabeth Taylor with a picture of Elizabeth Taylor. And the message begins, "Hi, Louis." At which point I said, "I'm listening." And then they asked if I wanted some merch from, it's called House of Taylor. This, like, the estate does all this, like, Elizabeth Taylor merch. And so this is a white shirt with rainbow lettering of Elizabeth Taylor. But it's not just rainbow lettering. There's pink letters in it, too. And I want to say that's extra pride points because the pride flag is, of course, gay and iconographic. But so are Crayola washables. And this pink is exactly Crayola washables pink. I'm very thrilled to wear it. I've been thinking about Elizabeth Taylor, who I think among celebrities, she's one of the rare people where the more you know about her, the more you fucking love her. You can go deeper and deeper and deeper, and her movies were both extremely classic and some of them very weird. If you haven't seen Boom, that's a very weird movie, but obviously watch Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, obviously watch A Place in the Sun, Suddenly Last Summer. It's both legitimate drama and some gay camp in all of these. So very recommended it for this Pride Month.
So thinking about Elizabeth Taylor, obviously white diamonds.
Oh, yes. Getting into
the
gay
fragrance.
camp.
Yes. But do you recall I wonder if they still have the posters there at the Abbey of the Blue Velvet Martini, as it were, the Elizabeth Taylor drink that was made in honor of her?
No.
It's a nod to her film National Velvet.
Oh, Blue Velvet. Okay, sure. By the way, if you have not seen National Velvet, it is such a sweet a sports movie starring a woman, and as you know, we have 3 of those altogether. From 1940 is one of my favorite supporting actress winners. Anne Revere plays her mother. Go ahead and watch it. And Angela Lansbury's in it. Lots to mind. Anyway, go ahead. What's in this drink?
So it's a bluish drink, obviously, with vodka and blueberry schnapps.
Quaint. I can picture her ordering it at the Abbey, where, by the way, she would just go sometimes.
Yes. It was David Cooley who owned the Abbey at the time. There's an article from the time around when she died. I moved to LA about right after Elizabeth Taylor died, and that's when the drink was first debuted at the Abbey, and it was a nod to her because she used to just show up with her dog and go to the Abbey. And apparently the Halloween before she had died, she came, and there was just a line around the block of people to come and see Elizabeth Taylor.
Right. She's like a building you could visit at one point in LA. Like, we don't have just like golden age people sitting around anymore. You know, I when I was on Love It or Leave It the other week, we were talking about the world of exchanging stories of Faye Dunaway being around town. And I guess technically, you know, she's still with us. There's a documentary coming out, so maybe she'll be visible again. But that is just so over, that world of just, somebody lingering around LA who's some queen from the 60s, some double Oscar winner.
Love It or Leave It. Where's he at?
No guess. What his ambitions are. Yeah. Hopefully.
Well, I hope he's good wherever he is.
Right. And laying back, kicking back on the sand, if you will. Yeah.
Kicking back in Ponderosa.
Yeah.
There is no way he's in the finals.
I guess. So I've seen video footage where this man, Jon Lovett, our coworker, appears to be on the television series Survivor. I will say, as somebody who has worked with him at various hit camps, I can see that he has the rage to do this. I've watched him work, and, you know, I already look a little bit like a villain in Sophie's Choice. Like, I've got that intensity. He also has...
You're the cashier?
Yeah, I want her to make a choice. You know what I'm saying? Right. I'm curious how far it'll take him. I truly have no guess how he will do. It's very interesting to me.
Yeah, our friend Erin Gloria Ryan tweeted this, and she said, I don't mean this in a mean way, but she said Lovett will 100% have a villain edit on Survivor.
Well, anybody whose whole thing is being a little witty and frankly snarky, like there's no hero version of that, really, you know.
Yeah. Also, they showed a clip of him, and he was wearing a yellow sweater while talking about the last time I was in the woods was like the Boy Scouts, etc. Whatever. I'm pretty sure that was a Bodie shirt that he was wearing, and so yeah, he's going to be the LA villain.
Yes, right.
Probably, or maybe not. But I hope that he at least makes it to Merge and then Jury, so that can talk about him on the show every week. If he goes out early, then it's funny, but then what do we have to talk about?
No, it's upsetting. I do want this to be a serial. And also, as you know, I just love describing the things he wears. In a Fashion Police, Joan Rivers, vintage Fashion Police way, when they were truly bastardly. Those were mean people they just threw on television to insult clothing. That's my people.
Who was it besides her?
It was like Brad Goreski would be with him, I think, with
yeah.
her. And
yeah,
people of that. But Joan would always be the meanest. I mean, like Kerry Washington could wear something perfectly benign, and she would say, "Go to hell, Kerry Washington." I mean, it's so funny.
I missed that era, but I just was recently rewatching. I was in Fire Island for a bit, and some of my friends had on Rachel Zoe Project had just dropped on Peacock, so they just were watching it all day.
One of the world's greatest TV shows.
Revisiting the way that people talked then, like the way that she talked, but that was a specific way that gays and white women all started talking that exact same way during those years, and it was really a shock hearing it again in my ears.
Now, it sounds to me like you're saying like very casual use of say the word tranny.
Yeah, I mean, there's tranny, but there's also just the inflection and the way people used to always say, like, like if you're out of your coffee at if they're out of like almond milk at the coffee shop, right? Something like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna die, kill me."
Yes.
Like that exact sort of
Like Valley Girl,
everything
kind of, but 2000s.
Valley Girl. Yeah. Valley Girl, but mundane and sort of very
Paris Hilton.
deadpan.
Paris
The way
Hilton.
everything was said.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Those girls. Yeah. So lame. Yeah. That really became a whole ass vibe. In fact, I think a lot of millennials, like elder millennials, people around our age, I think are clinging to that. Like they missed that was were our halcyon days.
Ellie Goulding.
Precisely. Now, what the hell is going on with this episode?
Well, speaking of faggot Pinocchios, we have the delightful, the wonderful Ladyfag joining us this week. New York nightlife queen. I'm always at her parties. As she mentions in the interview, she was like, "This is what you look like in the daylight."
She seemed a little. She felt provoked. I could tell it was novel to her. Yeah.
So we're going to talk to her a bit this week. And then also, speaking of another queen of the gays, Lady Gaga dropped her Chromatica Ball tour concert finally on HBO Max over the Memorial Day weekend. This concert was 10 years ago.
I was going to say, this album came out in the early 80s. I believe it competed with Christopher Cross on the charts. But lo and behold, we got it. Also, I guess we'll get into this, but quickly, at the end of the Chromatica Ball, she just beams something across the screen that says LG7 is coming or whatever. And it's like, but first of all, of course it is. Like, you put on albums, you're a pop star? I was so, she treated it like a big reveal. It's like, right, you put out albums anyway.
Well, there was a snippet of a new song.
Right.
As well. So, I mean, she's got to get the gays rustled. You know, there's the rumor that the album will be coming this year prior to Joker, which I think is a bit of a shock to everyone because I thought that she was entering her Rihanna era of what's music?
What if I just gave you a bag and kind of appeared every once in a while and I seem to be pregnant always?
Yeah. So I thought that that's where we were going with Gaga, but we'll get into this when we talk about Chromatica. But it was honestly fun to watch her perform again.
Oh, no, you forget that she's like one of our most dynamic live acts with also so much concept behind everything she does. We'll get into that. We also will talk about the other queen of the gays, Miss Garfield. She has a movie out. And so does Furiosa. And no one really cares.
You and that tweet.
Oh, wait. Oh, excuse me. Guys, I rarely would say.
It was so funny.
Ask me. You know Louis Vertel is like one of the more humble podcasters. When I ate with this fucking tweet and called that release Lasagna Taylor Joy, you girls were on the floor beneath me. You were eating the floor as I, Louis, ascended.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. Right.
I did not see either of those films. Maybe I'm the problem with cinema right now.
Right.
I'm helping to kill the movies.
Well, I'm excited to read Scorsese's essay about you. Yes.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the state of the movies also this episode. So we'll be right back with more Keep It. Well, it looks like that Nurtec money ran out because Lady Gaga has returned to her music career and dropped Gaga Chromatica Ball.
Migraine on me, tsunami. Go ahead.
The new film captures the LA stop of her 2022 Chromatica tour and was directed, produced, and created by Stephanie Germanotta herself.
Athalie, I don't know the word for single in French. Just her?
You know, she definitely knew how to say faggotness in Italian. This Italian girl from New York.
How has she not launched that on us? Yeah.
Her actually, Joanne probably said it all the time.
That's the album I'm curious about. Why didn't we get that version of Joanne?
Well, she said there's too much faggocione about her previous albums, and that's why Gaga made Joanne a country one.
Finally, yes.
Yeah.
Weren't you surprised, by the way, that we got in this movie like a couple of songs from Joanne, and then I don't believe a single song from Art Pop?
Yeah, that bitch hates Art Pop.
I fucking
don't get
guess.
it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. She seems to pretend that whole era doesn't exist, which, fine. She was cavorting on stage with R. Kelly.
Right.
She
From a tabloid perspective, not a great era. Yeah.
Yeah, she was giving a lot of Kate Moss vibes, if you know what I mean, during that era too. Art pop was a whole journey. And I think that she is she'll revisit it at some point, but right now art pop seems to be dead.
Right. But going back to her earlier eras, Chromatic Ball starts, and she immediately does, in a kind of surprising move, I think, Bad Romance into Just Dance into Poker Face. I mean, like, truly clearing out like the most legendary part of her catalog immediately. But something about this concert special that I thought was so amazing, and it speaks to a well she can go back to time and again that works for her specifically. When she leans into sci-fi, it works so well. The look of this tour, especially at the beginning, it's a very schlock horror, or not schlock horror, like schlock B movie from the 50s, 60s, where everything's like Logan's Run or Barbarella, like the giant shoulder appliques, the epaulettes, the vague monster movie vibe. That's something that weirdly no other pop star can do and lean into and find a lot of cool comedy in. And even like when you think of the ways she's overlapped with like Madonna's various iterations over the years, Madonna never did anything like sci-fi. You know, like the Bedtime Story like leans into it a little bit, but not really. She really, in that universe, has found her own specific thing. And I think the best parts of the whole movie are when she is wearing, for instance, like a lizard goblin headpiece and just turns her head a little bit. It's so funny. And I think she is funny, and you can lose sight of that in the midst of the somewhat self-serious moments she also has on stage where she like has to command all of us to love ourselves. I'm not saying that's not important. I'm just saying some of us got to be gay adults and we did the work already. Can we move on? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. RuPaul says it every week.
Right. It's based, right, which is like our church, right? So we get that in the missalette every week and we're reading it and reciting it.
Yeah. I love just the costumes. I love just the energy of the show. She does have such a massive catalog. She's such a great performer that she can open the show with that. And honestly, I will say, though, that the end of the show didn't really hit for me as much as it did when I saw the Chromatica tour. So I saw the Chromatica tour. We discussed this in 2022, of course, in Paris. I saw it after my friend's wedding. And took the little Eurostar down to Paris and saw Le Gaga show. She closed it out.
Juliette Binoche. Yeah, go ahead.
She closed out the show with Hold My Hand at the time because Top Gun was massive. She did that song in it. And we didn't really care about that song. But I posited that the song was major and a stadium moment when she performed it at the end of her concert. But that doesn't really translate 2 years later watching it on, HBO. I was just sort of like, okay, here's this song. There's this, I barely realized she was wearing this big claw hand.
Yes,
at the
very
end
Vega
too.
from Street Fighter. Yes.
And so that just sort of hit with a little thud to me, mostly because after the Chromatica tour, she sort of vanished from giving a fuck about music. She was in her Nerdtech land. She was doing like Joker, Folie à Deux. And so we never really even got any more performances of that song. So it's just sort of like I'd forgotten about it.
I forgot that song existed. When she started to tear into it, it took me 2 extra beats to place it, actually. And then I was like, oh yeah, right, Top Gun Maverick. All right, this plays at the end or whatever. And obviously she was, in fact, nominated for an Oscar for it. Probably was a serious contender for the win, but that was also the year of Natu, which took over immediately and won the Oscar eventually. But yeah, I don't think it has a lot of lasting power in her catalog. It just doesn't feel like something I'm going to return to and be like, oh, I have to hear that in concert. Even though, of course, she can belt. God, can she belt. Like, the vocals are so amazing at this concert. And I have to say, this is a tour that really benefits from not being overexposed. Not to say that, like, Eras and the Renaissance tour are overexposed. Eras, I believe, is still going on. In fact, we're just going to keep getting Eras, as I understand it. But like you are aware of those as massive pop cultural moments or whatever. And Chromatica sort of has slipped under the radar, both as an album and as a tour. So to revisit it and realize, oh, there's so much going on here. And so it has as much levity as it does seriousness. Just impressive top to bottom.
I think another reason for that is that the tour was in 2022. And I think that 2023 was really a big year for Renaissance tour, Eras tour, even Madonna's tour on TikTok constantly, like TikTok or Reels. The Madonna tour was on Reels because her fans are old. And so you were constantly inundated with this concert footage, right? And unless you specifically followed faggots who were going to the Chromatica tour, you weren't seeing that content all the time.
Right.
And it was pretty localized too. There weren't a lot of people who I knew who were traveling to Europe to see the show, for instance, the way I and several people did for Renaissance tour, and then people also did for Eras, just because 2023 was also the sort of dam breaking of the whole Ticketmaster monopoly shit, which has now, of course, led to the lawsuit. But that was just sort of when everyone was like, concerts are the rent's too damn high, you know? Concerts are too fucking expensive in the US. We're going to travel to see these. And Chromatica was sort of like the year before all of that happened.
Now, it sounds like this is a way to get into the real topic at hand, which is J.Lo canceling her tour.
Let me stop laughing because let me stop. Because some people get it wrong online when I make jokes about J.Lo. That is my Leo sister, okay?
Right.
I love J.Lo down. I remember telling you back in the day when we went to see J.Lo in Vegas, I was like, you are going to love it. She's amazing. She's a consummate performer. And she is. And it is so weird to see this backlash to J.Lo happening because all she did was release some projects. You know, she was the moment from Hustlers to now there could not be a wider valley.
Yeah, right. No, she was like, we were like, oh, she's on track to get an Oscar nomination. And she had the incredible Super Bowl moment with Shakira, one of my favorite halftime shows ever. And then these projects, I will say, and we talked about her weird Moonwalker movie. It was admirable in a way. And there was a lot going on. And she obviously funded it herself. Like, cool, whatever. But it just didn't stick. Like, she didn't have the literally one pop hook you needed to like remember the era by. And I do think it was a bit of a folly to book a stadium immediately after that. Obviously, she is a huge superstar. But I think also, I mean, like, I think of when we saw her in Vegas where I was just right underneath her. And obviously, that's like a pretty big room, but not like a stadium-sized room. That to me is perfect for J.Lo because she's not she's larger than life as a celebrity, but not as a performer, even though she outlasts the entire room. She will dance you down. The woman is, I mean, as I do not need to report, so in shape, it's wild. She looks like she's made out of adamantium.
Right. Someone asked me this weekend, what do you think J.Lo is doing right now? And I said, honestly, the bitch is probably at the gym.
Right. No, she is focused.
She is always in training for the upcoming apocalypse. So, like, I will find J.Lo when the aliens arrive. Okay.
No, she is on the stepping machine.
She is going to survive.
And taking a call. Yeah.
But you know, I just started using the Stairmaster recently. It's never been a thing that I've used in the gym before, and now I kind of love it.
It's very entrancing. Like when you're on you know, you just like kind of get into it and you accept the pain of it eventually, even though it is, you know, like prison labor.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's become this trend this summer because everyone is always tweeting about using the Stairmaster and people doing I have my 20-minute Stairmaster routine every day. I don't know about that, but shout out to them.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. But speaking of aliens and being in shape, right? J.Lo, part of the other problem is, do we want to see her in shit like Atlas?
Well, apparently half of America just went and signed on for it because it's like the biggest movie on Netflix right now. And when I saw the preview
you open that app, and it just starts playing. Okay, like I watched half of Tires before I realized what was happening.
No, please. Netflix is shady and strange. No, and also, excuse me, I saw the trailer for this movie and it looks like a Sega Saturn cutscene. Excuse me, what? She's in like a Power Rangers Ultrazord like contraption, like walking around. She just picks the weirdest fucking things to do. It reminds me of when she did that show Shades of Blue for I don't know however many seasons. Was that like a part of a Rumpelstiltskin curse? Why would she do that?
She is obviously a consummate Leo because she is very much sort of enamored with her own mythology and just the idea that she is this serious actress. I feel like part of the reason why she works is she thinks she's a different actress than she actually is. And we just want to see you playing an Italian woman married to a white man. Okay? Like give us a rom-com again. Okay?
Yeah, right.
Give us one of those, or give us a Boy Next Door type or something. You know? I think that is what we want from her. We want sort of the schlock, the romance, because J-Lo was a girl's girl. You know? So like she doesn't really seem like a girl's girl because I don't even know if she has her best friend Leah Remini at this point, which I just discovered that they had a falling out. And I think it's because J-Lo's dad is in Scientology.
Really? As in Leah initially reeled him in?
No, and that they reeled him in, but I think that they were, when Leah might have been in or whatever, I think that they were mad at her for not converting J-Lo to Scientology.
Oh, yeah. They do seem to like having new celebrities involved in Scientology, over at Scientology.
Baby, if J-Lo had joined, that would have been hot for them, okay?
Yeah, right.
Like, I would have signed up.
Oh, please. I would be on the 6 to the center, yes.
Other side note about Scientology, it's fun seeing people pre-Scientology. There was just a photo of Madonna's wedding to Sean Penn that was going viral around of like a limo with Tom Cruise in it back in like 85.
Yeah, 86 is when they got married, right? Mm-hmm.
Sorry, 86, yeah. Doing poppers with Keith Haring in the limo.
Hey, what did you just fucking say to me?
Sniffing poppers with Keith Haring in the limo. Please look this up. Yes!
What? Did you draw this? Is this a real picture? I've been bedeviled by AI once and twice. Don't even start with me about this.
It is Tom Cruise and Keith Haring doing poppers in the limo on the way to Madonna and Sean Penn's wedding. And it reminds me that, honestly, if he hadn't gotten into Scientology, Tom Cruise might have been like a very like cool, weird celebrity. He is weird and still cool, but menacing. Right.
Well, there's just a slight demented quality to Tom Cruise always, as in like somebody got to him and it feels like Scientology and he has this old kooky math system, science system going on in his head. But you're right. Also, Keith Haring, what a way to live in your 30 years on this planet. Oh my God. I mean, to do
he did it all.
Tom Cruise. Yeah. Yeah, what else was there left to do? Yeah.
But no, J-Lo is just sort of like, this is the vibe that we want from her. You know, she seems like she's always trying to remind us that I'm just a girl from the Bronx, you know. I just took the 6 every day. But that is her vibe, you know. You want to watch movies where she seems relatable enough. Where Made in Manhattan, The Wedding Planner, etc.
Or Hustlers, where she has female friends. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I think that, I don't know, actually, that's a very good point. She has like the female friends in Hustlers, right? And all of her other rom-coms. And when you think about that movie about her life, the This Is Me Now, Then, whatever, the friend group in that movie seems so fake.
Totally.
It's just like, here's a couple gay people. Here's a woman. It felt very, focus grouped friends.
Yes, right.
Yeah, central casting, focus grouped, and it didn't make J-Lo's life look alluring or enticing or like you want it to be a part of it.
No. You're right. It wasn't relatable, and she does achieve relatability in her best moments, I think. Even though, as you know, my least favorite thing an artist can do is claim, in an attempt to have a rad identity, I'm from somewhere. I fucking hate that. That used to be Barbra Streisand's thing. It's kind of J-Lo's thing. Madonna only says, I left Detroit, and she's disparaging about it. This makes her like advanced in this arena. Like if you make fun of where you're from, love that.
Yeah. She is just sort of like, she was really good at the relatability in these roles, though. And then when you'd see regular J-Lo in her public life with all these marriages, etc., and then just sort of like being this larger-than-life celebrity, that was a fun contrast, I feel like. But it feels like, I don't know, the balloon popped, and now we're just sort of back to square one with her. Right. And I don't know, she just needs a little break, and then we need to see her do anything else.
Yeah, she needs a new chapter. I don't know what the next new thing she can do is, because she kind of has done it all at this point. And like, obviously, the new attempt at a concert tour has failed. So I don't know. I'm curious what her next move is. You believe? I believe
she could do it. If she worked with a fun producer again, even the Scott Storch, and released a song, I'm sure people would enjoy it. The problem really was that album just wasn't great.
No, it wasn't. No, I mean, I gave it a shot. I enjoy J-Lo. I think every song on the Sticks is great. I think the albums after that are all not good aside from the singles on the albums. And I think this one didn't even have the single. But anyway, which, by the way, let's take this back to Chromatica quickly before we peace out. Really almost no songs on that album I dislike. Replay I have my issues with, but it was nice to revisit all of those songs. Really, it's a top to bottom exciting album. And I like how it was realized on stage, namely Babylon, like how she didn't really do voguing, but it was like, the sci-fi tinged little walk like an Egyptian kind of moves going on. That was fun.
Well, fuck her for excluding Plastic Doll, my favorite song on Chromatica.
Love Plastic Doll, yes. Also, it was very cool to see her sing parts of other people. Like she sang the Sour Candy Blackpink parts. That was cool to see. And I also liked her doing the Jackson Maine parts of Shallow, which I underestimated we would get as part of the Chromatica tour. But fabulous concert.
We don't really have many Gaga covers, do we?
No. I'm recently obsessed with a couple of Madonna covers, which, by the way, we don't get a lot of the time either. So I hope people... Yeah. The thing with Gaga is the vocals are so extreme or excellent. Why would you cover them? You know what I mean? It's like covering Whitney Houston. There's only a couple of them.
Well, that too, but I mostly meant from her own concerts. Like, we don't really get her doing covers of other music.
Oh, no, which is so weird. And I love the ones I can think of. She collaborated with Sting one time on a cover of King of Pain that I think is one of her most underrated live moments.
But I think that what I really love about maybe the Renaissance tour is that Beyonce is still sort of devoted to the idea of honoring songs that she loves and musicians that she loves. So when she does a cover, whether it's Tina Turner on a Renaissance tour or, doing Kings of Leon, Sex is on Fire, doing Alanis Morissette, it's just always fun hearing an artist you love who can perform another artist's songs. And it sort of like either elevates it or gives you like a new different vibe of it. And I don't know, hearing her sing those parts of Sour Candy, hearing her sing the Jackson Maine parts, I think it would be fun to hear Gaga sort of take on another artist's songs, like a Lou Reed or maybe like some other country artist.
Right. No, also it just tells you so much about the artist, like what they value and like remember from probably growing up. You know what I mean? It does a lot more than, for example, insisting you're from the Bronx.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to now imagine a origin story where just this Italian girl from New York runs into Jennifer from the Bronx and they get into adventures in the city. Sort of like Shake It Up.
Okay. Actually, I think this is a complete pitch. So good work.
All right. When we're back, we will be joined by Ladyfag. This week's guest isn't just on the pulse of New York City's nightlife. She is the pulse. She's a performer, producer, everything behind fame parties like Battle Hymn, Holy Mountain, the upcoming LadyLand Festival, earning her the prestigious title of Nightlife Sorceress by the New York Times. So please welcome to Keep It, Ladyfag.
Wow, that made me sound much fancier than I think I actually am, but thank you for the intro. And nice to see you in the daytime. This is a rare occurrence.
Might even be illuminating. You're like, oh, that's Ira, huh? What?
Yeah.
So this is what he does during the day. Impressive.
We're in the throes of Pride Month. Is this like both the best and worst time of your year? Like, are you like, oh God, I'm at wit's end. These queens are keeping me up and out and I hate them.
Yeah, it's my party and I'll cry if I want to
Yes.
over here.
Leslie Gore is
Yeah.
always in vogue for Pride Month. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, people are always like, oh, are you having fun? I'm like, do I really ever have fun? I'm just glad everyone else is having fun. But happy Pride. So yes, I do love saying that over and over. But it's kind of like the weekend. Everyone's like, oh, it's the weekend. I'm like, that's when I work. So for me, it's a bit opposite. Yes, of course I love it, but this is the stressful month for me. So,
well, congrats on looking extremely upright and afloat and willing to take. I literally stayed out late last weekend and I feel like a fucking corpse. So I don't understand how you do it.
Oh, you look fine. Well, that's good. I would not be on video if it was after an event. So there's that. But, on my
No, I want to talk about LadyLand, the festival. It's so interesting because Lewis is talking about like he was up this weekend because Pride just happened in LA. And basically you have to throw a festival now to compete with everything that's going on for Pride. So how did you sort of conceive the idea of we're going to throw this thing and it's going to be major and we've got people like Tinashe coming to perform now?
Honestly, when I started it, there weren't really all these festivals that happen now. And I kept being like, I'd always want to go to festivals and no one really wanted to go to them. It wasn't really what gays kind of did, unless it was really somebody that you wanted to see at a, straight festival. Or maybe people would go to Coachella, but that would be the extent of it. And I was like, I don't understand why there's not like cool queer festivals. Everything was like, very, very not a bad thing. It would be circuit. And then there'd be like a gay pop star. That was basically the MO for, all gay big Pride events. And I was like, it's so strange. Like, why don't we have our own Coachella? So I just decided to try to do one. And I didn't think there was anything that weird about it until someone did an interview for the first one. And they were like, it was like an industry interview. And they were like, okay, well, how did you get even? Who do you work with? Are you working with Live Nation? What agency are you from? Like, where did you, where's your festival and your concert experience? And I was like, I don't have any. They're like, well, who are you working with? I'm like, oh, me and this one other person were in our kitchen right now. And they're like, well, who's funding this? I'm like, I have some credit card bills. Like, I literally didn't understand that it was a big deal. And they were like, well, how did you get Eve? And I was like, she's a friend of mine. And they were like, okay. And they were so confused. And so was I. And then once we pulled it off, I was like, holy shit, actually, how did I pull that off? And maybe, I guess it's that thing. Maybe if I would have thought about it more, I would have been too scared to do it. So thank God I didn't. And I just went ahead and tried doing it the first year. And, obviously it's grown since then. But yeah, there wasn't really anything kind of like that at the time. So we did it. Where there is a hole, we like to fill it. So that is one of our mottos at work.
Oh, it must be Pride Month. Yes. Okay. Very good.
No, honey, that is all year round. That is definitely one of our mottos. So
you gave an interview somewhat recently where you talked about how throwing a party is just solving a series of problems, and at the end you throw a party. Now that sounds like hell on earth to me. But can you elucidate and talk about just a general string of problems you will encounter while putting together just an occasion for queer people to be together?
I mean, everything is a problem. It's if you're not dealing with diva issues, and that would come from your artists, or it comes from your guests, or it comes from the authorities. And there are so many levels of authorities that you don't realize exist in trying to please when you're doing things. Not that we try to please everyone, because that's utterly impossible, I've learned, but we do try to please people. And so it's, there's always something. I mean, you actually hear, I don't know if you can hear, but there's fire trucks going by. I mean, we've had that pull up to our events before. There's just always something that's going to go wrong. There's always, I've never had an event be problem free, and you have to basically be at the event and be pretending like everything is going so well when really you're literally talking to someone going, so nice to see you, and then you're literally on your like headphone on the other side going, holy shit, can you somebody open the back door? And there's just always something going wrong, and there's and that's even before you put in all the egos of all the divas that you're bringing to the stage. There's always something going wrong, and then you add that in, and then you're really effed. So yeah, really, we look at events opposite. We don't look at an event as this is this amazing event. We look at it as a huge problem, and we just try to solve a lot of problems so that when you get to the event, you don't feel that there's any problems.
I like that it's also
it's smoke and mirrors.
I also like that you've described it as tiers of divas. Like you're just encountering divas at every single level, coming at you from all directions. It's like in Kill Bill being surrounded by 88 of them at once or whatever.
It really is. Because sometimes, not to say, we try to work with primarily gay people, but sometimes you have to work with some straight people, and that's okay.
No.
Yeah. Sometimes, the fire department or whatnot, or the people, getting you your permits, they might be straight people. We like them too. But it's always interesting when you work with them, because then you realize like how diva-ish our community can be, because you realize like how many problems come up, and then you're like, oh God. And it's kind of like that thing where you're embarrassed of your own family. Sometimes you're like, oh my God, I can't believe they're acting this way. And you're like, like you have a drag queen who's like, a local drag queen come up and, tell the venue, I need XXX. And you're like, okay, Whitney Houston. Do you know what I mean? You're like, these are people who deal with like the biggest, celebrities. And then you'll get some like, local drag queen literally thinking she's Madonna, which is also part of why that local drag queen is probably so fabulous, because she believes she's Madonna, and she should. And so we indulge all that kind of behavior because I think it's kind of fabulous. But at the same time, when you're working with, people in the event industry who might not be so gay, they sometimes are like, what the hell is going on with these people? So it's an interesting ride trying to work in the real world. In our little office here of gayness, everything seems pretty normal until we take it out to the real world. So we try not to do that very much.
Smart.
I think about when, a lot of our listeners too, who aren't in New York, when they're taking in New York culture, nightlife, you obviously have films like Party Girl or, with 200 Cigarettes and things like that. But take us back to when you stepped foot in New York, the first party you're at. What was it about the party that made you feel like, one, I love going to this shit? And then two, where was the point where you were like, I can also throw my own?
Well, I remember this is almost 20 years ago. And I walked into Hero Ballroom on a Sunday night, and my mind was blown. I was like, this is a Sunday night. Like, wow. Like that's, I think I want to stay here. And I remember I didn't know anybody. And I was like partying all night, just dancing, having the best time. I was sober because I couldn't even afford a cocktail. I had no money. And it was fun. It was fun anyways. And then at the end, the lights came on. I was definitely one of the last people there. And I was like, I'm going to absorb every moment of this amazingness. And these guys were like, oh, we're going to APT next. Do you want to come with us? You're fab. And I was like, oh, thanks. What's that? And I'd never even heard of it. And so I go into a car with like 3 random strangers, and they take me to APT, and Xander is standing at the door. And I was like kind of nervous because I could tell people weren't getting in, and I didn't know one person. And I was like kind of talking to him. And I remember I touched his necklaces, and he goes, please don't touch the jewelry. He's like, also, you look amazing. Come in. And so all of a sudden I go into this basement, and there's like, probably like 500 people in a space that fits 100, with ceilings that felt that like, they might have been like 5 foot tall. They were so short. You felt like you were crushed underneath them. And it was, it opened my eyes to a whole new world, and I've never left that world. So yeah, that's my nightlife story. Basically. Well, it's not really my nightlife story. That was one of my nightlife stories. I guess my nightlife story was, do you remember Duvet?
Yes.
It was a club that had beds in it. Great concept. somebody's got to bring that concept back. It was a great concept. I went to this party, Duvet, same thing. Didn't know anyone, had no money. And Kenny, I remember he came up and gave me a drink ticket. And I was like, oh my God, I can finally have a cocktail. And I was, I had fun that night. And I remember I was dancing on the floor and just doing a crazy floor show. And he came up to me and he was like, you, come here. He's like, what's your name? And he was like, do you want to dance for me at Happy Valley? And at the time, Happy Valley was like the big club. And Kim Aviance used to be the girl in the go-go cage. And like, wow, she was so major. And I was like, I can't believe I'm going to be allowed to do this. And I remember I like stood up and I was like so in shock. And I overheard him going to, I think actually it was Michael Musto. She's like some kind of Amazon. And then he twirled his wrist and he's like, but I think I like it. And then they stuck me in a cage way up in the sky and I go danced. And then I came out and he was like, you've got the job. And then that was it. And so I started go-go dancing every Tuesday night for Kenny and Suzanne for $100. And that was it. So, and I remember every week I would like take the subway because I couldn't afford to take a car both ways home. And I'd wear this trench coat over my bathing suit so that I wouldn't get attacked on the way to the club. So, we all start somewhere and that's where I started.
Flasher attire. I love it.
Basically, it was basically flasher attire. Yep. So
now,
yep.
As somebody who's done this now, as you said, for like 20 years, what do you find that from kind of like the old world of New York partying, people are still trying to incorporate into new parties? And how, and opposingly, how are parties today better than they were 20 years ago?
Everything always just changes. It's constantly in flux, as it should be. I mean, I definitely, absolutely hate, not that that's what you asked me, the whole conversations. If anything, you asked the opposite. Why was it better before? Like, I think nostalgia could be so dangerous, where people live in the past. Things are whatever they are at the moment. You only look at things when you look at them from back there. Not that I don't, always have visions of, seeing Grace Jones appear in the middle of the night, in the middle of a rave somewhere that I paid $5 to get into. Sure, that's a great fantasy. And that doesn't fully exist right now. But we have our moments like that too. So I think things always change and they always rise to the occasion. And like right now, I think nightlife is incredible. It does have its little ups and downs, but I think post-pandemic, if we want to talk about the present, post-pandemic, I feel like New York City is so alive again. And there's just really, it's a matter of deciding what you want to do on any given night. And that's what's, so incredible about living in New York City, Was that the question?
I've noticed a lot of the same too, being back in the city post-pandemic. Whenever someone comes to visit too, there's always something going on. And I have to wonder, with so many parties going on, how do you feel like people even figure out like what are the ones you should be going to? We're past the days of passing out flyers to people, but also should we bring that back? Because it's fun when you see a flyer on Instagram, but people scroll right past that, and is that different from being handed one the way that people used to?
Well, maybe I'm going to age myself as granny over here, but I still wait for flyers as well. I think we're one of the only people that still do that, but I love a postcard. I love going to the club and getting a postcard and, having people being able to grab them. And like, sometimes I see people Instagram them, they use them as bookmarks and I'll take it, but I think that's great because then years later you have something you can hold in your hands and be like, oh, I remember when I like gave a blowjob in the bathroom at this party, and then you can show your kids the postcard. It just adds to the realness of the event, and it's not just some online memory, So I don't know. I think there's, like we said, everything changes, right? So back then, when there was 10 million postcards going around, how did you differentiate, postcard to postcard? Now, how do you make your event stand out amongst all the different things that people see on Instagram? And I think booking good artists is your first step, if you actually have the talent, and then you people kind of trust that if I put my name on it, they're at least going to have, you might not like it. Not everyone likes every DJ I've ever booked, and not everyone likes every artist I've ever booked, but there's definitely a lot of thought put into them. So in theory, I'd like to think that people come to these events because they are guaranteed a certain caliber of artist, you know? No offense to iPod DJs. I'm just saying, you know, it's like we are very proud of the artists that we put at our clubs and at our festivals that we work on. So,
yeah. Well, if they're playing off an iPod now, maybe that's a little vintage, you know, and iPod DJs maybe giving you a throwback.
I just the second time I revealed myself to be Granny. It's just what we call them Walkmans sometimes. I'm like, do you know where my Walkman is?
Your talk boy. Let's say somebody put a curse on you where they said you have to continue doing your job, but you can't do it in New York ever again. What city would you pick to do your work in?
You're asking me to pick a city that I'd be cursed in?
Well, you get to have some autonomy in the curse. Yeah.
Is a curse?
Like if you couldn't do New York nightlife, where would the nightlife be stimulating enough for you to work?
Oh, that's the question. So that's a different question. I mean, I do love, London has amazing nightlife. My wife's English, so, you know, we were in the East End of London. So it's like Hackney Wick has some of the best nightlife you could hope for outside of Brooklyn, of course. Not that it's a competition. So I love London. And I mean, it's a totally different experience, but I do love Ibiza. I do love a summer in Ibiza. It's, you know, being outdoors and dancing outdoors. There's something, you know, magical about that. And, you know, New York has that. It's just a lot sweatier and smells a lot more of garbage. Still magic, but a lot stinkier. So it's a little different with the ocean breeze, I'm going to say, when you're, you know, not that I would say you're rolling on a pill, but if you were rolling on a pill, I'd like to do it outside with an ocean breeze and a palm tree and not a bunch of garbage. So, but I like both. Both are great.
Even mentioning a moment where, you know, like we don't have these anymore, you know, of like a Grace Jones appearing in the club where you paid $5 to get in. But what I love about a club now is, you know, Kim Petras, who was booked before for LadyLand, but had to pull out. Like, you know, like I remember when she was first coming up, like in LA when Louis and I were there, and you know, we'd see her at some club that we didn't even pay to get into. You're just like, why is Kim Petras on a stage singing? You know,
no, she'd be performing at Sweet Green. I mean, it made no sense. She'd be everywhere. Yeah.
And so,
I mean, we still have that though. We still do. I shouldn't have said it in that way because we definitely still have those moments. I don't know. Were you there when Cardi B came and performed at Holy Mountain?
Oh my God.
Yes.
That was supposed to be a surprise. And then she decided all of a sudden the club calls me at like 6:00. They're like, lady, there's a line around the block of all these people. What's going on? And I was like, oh shit. And I looked on her Instagram and she was really excited. And so she posted it. So that was a nightmare. Thanks, Cardi. But, you know, we've had lots of moments like that where we do surprise guests and like, you know, suddenly everyone freaks out because that's part of the fun. I think people, you know, artists want to connect to their audience and they definitely want to connect to their gay audience because we're the best audience. And so, you know, they love to create moments like that in stunts. So we still have, you know, lots of those exciting little moments have happened at LadyLand and at, you know, a lot of my parties that has happened in
What's one of your, what would you say is one of your favorite memories of, you know, sort of like a just fun, either a fun celebrity moment or just a fun moment at the party where you were like, you're always going to be remembering that moment until you die. Like that was just a moment where you're like, we couldn't stop talking about it when we left the club.
I mean, there's so many of those.
Of course.
Moments. I mean, I think even, you know, I think you don't realize it while you're doing it. Like we're talking about the hindsight, how things can become so special. So for example, like, you know, Sophie performed at LadyLand Festival.
Yeah.
And, you know, even then you realized it was a moment because she was just that her album came out a few days before And there was all of a sudden you realize that she's a star. And, you know, of course, now she died fairly recently. And so you look back on that and you're like, I was there. I was part of this moment. I saw her. I got to experience that. So I think, you know, not taking any of these moments for granted when you see these performers is like pretty amazing. I mean, even Kim Petras, we're talking about, you know, I don't know if you were at the first LadyLand and she performed there and, you know, it started to rain and I was like, it's my first festival. And I'm like, or was it, maybe it was the second, no, it was the first one, literally the first one. And I was like, shit, what do we do? What happened? And we were just like, well, and then all of a sudden it just started pouring rain and I'm like, okay, this is over. And I thought everyone was just going to run away. And instead she started doing, you know, you can't do better and put the mic out and everyone's soaking wet and covered in rain. And it just was like a moment. And you knew she was going to be a star then. And everybody, you know, as much as you were soaking wet and you think that all the gays would be complaining, it was the opposite. It was magic and everybody knew that it was magic. And then, of course, the equipment all went crazy after because of the rain. And then I had to basically get on the mic and do stand-up comedy for like half an hour. And I'm not a comedian, obviously. So it was like, I had to like delay till they fixed all the equipment. So that was quite the fun night for everybody, hearing me completely wasted on a microphone for half an hour. But yeah, I mean, those were moments. If you were there, you were there, which is also part of what keeps it so exciting, not just for me, but for everyone. Because, you know, there's a lot of talk always about like, why do you need to go out? And people go out less, which is sometimes true because you can see it online. You don't need to connect with people all the time. You know, you could just look on your phone if you wanted to see what, you know, person X is up to. But at the same time, if you weren't there, you're going to miss these moments. And like, you know, if you're there, you know what those moments feel like. And that's collective joy when you're feeling it with other people. And that's when you have FOMO. So I think that's what keeps, you know, nightlife and just the music industry in general so exciting, the entertainment industry, is because there's absolutely no way to replicate it. As we learned during the pandemic online, there's just no way. You have to be there to really experience it.
And I will definitely be there for New York Pride. I cannot wait to experience your amazing parties. Truly, I mean, like, you basically are why FOMO exists. When I see these parties online, like, they're so explosive, so huge. And you're like, and here I am, you know, reading my Trivial Pursuit cards by myself, which, by the way, is very joyful. But it's not part of the collective joy you're experiencing. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having
fabulous
me.
guest. And if you haven't been to a Ladyfag party yet, I mean, book a ticket. Let's get going.
Yeah.
Thank
Get to
you.
LadyLand. Happy Pride. And I need a holy mountain back soon. I need one.
Yeah, it's coming in fall. You heard that here first.
Good.
Oh, TikTok. Yes. All right.
Yes. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye. We're officially in summer blockbuster season, but the only people who seem to care are PR reps and whoever that Garfield movie was for.
Me, Louis, perhaps. Go ahead. Yes.
Did you go see it?
I didn't, but let me tell you something. All around LA, you may be familiar with these little delivery robots. I don't think they're in every city, but like LA specifically has these delivery robots that are going up and down every sidewalk. And at the moment, they're all fucking Garfield themed. And there is just something extra, my least favorite word, dystopian about that. Like Garfield just patrolling around the city with like blinking robot eyes. Very strange. There's also billboards that have moving Garfield eyes. You know what? I just want to stick up for Garfield, though, in this way. This is a property from the late 70s that is mainly for children, that somehow has paws, if you will, and survives to this day. It's not different from Star Wars. You know what I mean? It just like lingers for some reason. We keep finding a new. It's like there's got to be an animated animal of some kind. May as well be the one with some, you know, recognizable attributes. And I will say, when you're trying to be like a little comedian kid, Garfield is helpful for teaching you like how to be sardonic, how to look to the side and say like a funny thing. There is something a bit instructive before you get to be a gay teenager who watches Daria. I'm assuming all children act like the way I did. Okay.
Well, listen, there's a big difference between the cartoon Garfield that you would get in the funny pages and the animated version of Garfield that we grew up with and whatever the fuck this Chris Pratt monster is. You know, it just seems like it's very anti what Garfield was in the first place. All of these major, big animated things like that, where it's let's stick a star in it, it's no one cares about that shit. I really still am always confused by throwing big celebrities in movies like that because you can't see them. And most of the time, their voices aren't even a draw to come and see the movie, you know, that like they're not really doing character acting.
No, right. They're kind of hired to be themselves, so you're not really getting the essence of the character you came to see. That said, again, people only I think have a visual memory of Garfield and don't know the animated thing we grew up with, who voiced by the amazing Lorenzo Music, alum of the show Rhoda, who played the unseen doorman Carlton. But anyway, I'm not saying I'll see this movie. Apparently, it was the worst Memorial Day weekend since 1995 when, get ready, Casper debuted to $22.5 million. Now, notable thing about that movie, it fucking sucked. So, much as
Are you coming out as a Casper hater?
Oh my God, it's so grim. Like, they tried to put like a real origin story behind Casper and it's about a dead kid or something. Jesus fucking Christ, who pitched that? And by the way, Christina Ricci is the first actress I was ever obsessed with at the age of 8. Oh, you're talking about sardonic people like Garfield and Daria? Wednesday Addams is like the third coordinate in that Bermuda Triangle of faggotry.
I think it's romantic and gothic. I think it's a cute movie.
Oh, God. I absolutely did not see it in the theater. I saw the same weekend Batman Forever. I was actually gay, motherfucker. Okay? Sugar and spice, bitch. Yes.
I obviously saw Batman Forever. I think I first saw Casper on home video.
Right.
So
that struck me as a big home video movie. But yeah, it is interesting about Furiosa that it's just not much of a draw. Also, Anya Taylor-Joy is this person who is very famous and respected. We love Queen's Gambit, obviously. But in terms of her movies, she actually has had a couple of stumbles recently. You know, she was in Amsterdam. She's in that fucking awful Last Night in Soho movie or whatever. She's sort of waiting to come into her own as a movie star. I wonder if that was something that factored in here. But at the same time, the original Mad Max was not exactly like a glorious box office moment either. You know, it was something that critically took over and obviously had a lot of presence at the Academy Awards. It was nominated for Best Picture. But I don't know that it was a slam dunk moment, you know, especially something to spend $160 million on or however much this movie cost.
yeah, I mean, I love Fury Road, and I will make a confession that it took me almost a decade to see that movie. I do not know how. But when I finally watched it, I was floored by it, and I watched it twice in one day, actually. I went home from my friend's place where we first watched it, and then I watched it again. So I have not seen Furiosa yet because I watched, you know, Fury Road the weekend that Furiosa came out. But I do have plans to see Furiosa. I love Anya Taylor-Joy, and I would love to see the prequel. But I don't know. Yeah, there is just something about her, too, where she is this... She's so fashionable in sort of a Zendaya way. I would say that she and Zendaya and Hunter Schafer are currently like the three women I always want to see on a carpet.
Right.
Like I always want to see them in a photo, but only Zendaya is the one who has recently sort of translated that into a film you really want to see with Challengers. And even then, is she the biggest draw of the film? No, but well, she's not the biggest focal point of the film.
Right.
Let me say that. She was one of the big draws of the film, obviously, and that film became more of a grower. You know, like I felt like everyone kept talking about Challenges. I'm still talking to friends who were like, "I saw Challenges last night." You know, I think it's become a word of mouth hit, but there's not really a lot of star vehicles for people at the moment. You know,
right? It's not really how things work anymore. It feels like, in a way, like whatever new limited series catches on, you don't even remember who the stars are really, or it's like not germane. Just people like I still can't name the actors in Baby Reindeer. You know what I mean? Who were fabulous, you know, and I'm sure we'll see them at the Emmys. But
I think it was Donner and Blitzen and Vixen. Rudolph wasn't in it though.
No,
they did not invite Rudolph to play their baby games.
They didn't meet his quota either. He wasn't going to show up. But I think also maybe the word of mouth on this movie is it just doesn't quite compare to how top notch Mad Max Fury Road was, and then in certain ways it's also too similar. And then also she shows up way too fucking late in this movie, and the movie is called Furiosa. What the hell is that about?
Let me tell you something. I saw The Fall Guy finally, and the first thing he does in that movie is fall.
That right now I know I'm in the right theater. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Orient me.
Also, with all this talk about we need to go save the cinema, there's been a lot of breathless takes online about how The Fall Guy is a perfect summer blockbuster and we all needed to go see it and it needed to be in theaters longer than 17 days before going to streaming. I do agree with the last part. I think that movies should be in theaters for much longer before they go to streaming. It gives it sort of a idea that if you don't go see it in the theaters, you can't be part of the conversation thing. But with The Fall Guy, there's no conversation to be had.
You hated this film.
The movie is not good.
Right.
It's not good. I didn't like it. What's interesting about it is that it has so many elements of a good movie. I think it's fun. I think obviously Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt are stars, and it's fun to just watch them in a goofy movie that really has nothing else going on, because the twists in the mystery of it were sort of obvious and rote, to be honest. And the romance I thought was a bit sort of, I didn't really believe it. It's a story where it's like there's scenes where he is in the middle of a fight scene and he's on the phone having like a romantic sort of emotional moment with Emily Blunt, and it's just goofy with the juxtaposition of it. And I'm like, maybe this would work in like Chuck.
Yeah.
You know, that TV show, but it didn't really work on the big screen for me. I didn't really buy any of the emotional moments. And I just feel like, I don't know, it felt very not a serious movie. And I can't believe that people were so seriously talking about this movie as if it is the best thing they've seen all year.
Also, you've now brought up the show, Chuck. Remember when Zachary Levi seemed like maybe a normal person you might want to meet at some point, and then he fucking he just fell the fuck out. He's like a vaccine loser. What the hell? So bizarre. Also, by the way, another movie in this vein, Hitman, came out, which, first of all, I did not know Glenn Powell co-wrote. Justin Theroux vibes. I didn't know we were doing that. What's going on here?
Okay.
But secondly,
a hot writer.
But also, that fucking sucked too. I thought it was an incomprehensibly bad movie. Didn't get it at all. And it looked like something you really wanted to see in a theater too, like something that would bring you there. But I think everyone's just kind of, I don't know, low-key flopping, as it were. Where is the excitement right now? I'm waiting for Prestige season to come back so that we can. That's my reason to go to a theater, obviously, but I don't see anything in the immediate future, blockbuster-wise, enticing me.
Right, I feel like The Holdovers, did well too, and that was Prestige, and that was like an interesting movie that people wanted to, like, we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we're sort of in this point in movies where we don't want to see endless sequels or franchise movies. That's why sort of Marvel had its sort of like, they reached glut at a certain point. And we want to go and see something that feels different than what we've seen before. I feel like, I don't know how exactly well Challengers has been doing, but it has legs and people are talking about this movie constantly, and at least has buzz because it felt like a fun, new adult movie for us all to go and see. Like it's giving people something to talk about. No one's really talking about The Fall Guy except for movie critics online.
Right. Yeah. Also, I'd want to say that Emily Blunt's character in that was written very, I would say, juvenile in that movie, and it makes no sense. That doesn't gel with who her character is. That's
maybe why I also didn't really buy the romance. Like it seemed like she just woken up from a coma.
Yeah.
Like she was Aurora. That's how Sleeping Beauty probably was to talk to when she woke up.
This will be the next installment in our Disney adult look back before we're put to sleep by Aurora herself.
You know who's good in that film though? Aaron Taylor Johnson. How is he not a bigger star?
That is a very kind of complex question, because when he does an interview, I am all ears and also sweating because woof. How he doing?
When he takes a photo,
right? Help me. No, I was watching that Amy movie that his wife directed, and I was like, was he on the set? Can we sneak him into a couple frames?
I think she keeps him locked up in a tower like Princess Peach.
Okay,
to be honest.
Smart move. Golden Globe winner for Nocturnal Animals. Yes.
I will never forget that.
Right.
And it's funny because I feel like when that happened, I was like, what the fuck? But now I'm like, it's weird that nothing sort of was capitalized off of that.
Yes, right. No, he sort of just stalled. Maybe he has the too many last names is what's doing him in. I have no idea.
Yeah, Aaron Johnson is or Aaron TJ, ATJ.
Oh, there we go. Like Andrew WK, but Andrew TJ. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I really loved his sort of like, my friend described it as him doing a Matthew McConaughey impersonation in this film, especially towards the end. I just thought the twist in the movie was whatever, but he leaned into the twist and the comedy of the film so well that he was my favorite fucking part of that movie.
By the way, speaking of movie stars, why don't we get more of Matthew McConaughey? Not that I crave him, but that's sort of the like pinnacle box office person that seems to be dependable, whom we're missing right now.
Yeah, I mean, wasn't he doing his whole maybe running for office thing?
Oh, God. Because he's sort of The Rock coded, right? He's almost like the intellectual The Rock, which is, I'm sorry, sad to say. But, yeah, I just have questions about where he is.
Yeah, well, I mean, let me look at his filmography and see what Matthew McConaughey has been up to. Yeah, so really nothing. I feel like he's sort of gotten to this period where he was, I want to make films like Dallas Buyers Club.
He just walked up and took an Oscar.
Doing.
He was like, you know what? The year is 2013. I'm so bored. What if, I revolutionized AIDS or whatever he does in that movie?
Yeah, he has a crime thriller coming out supposedly soon, and also this film The Lost Bus, which is a Paul Greengrass film. But I don't know, I just miss when we would get like a Magic Mike from him, a Lincoln Lawyer. He was great in fucking Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh yeah, probably my favorite scene actually. Everybody was good in the Wolf of Wall Street. I don't know why I say that begrudgingly. It was a good movie.
I think that Wolf of Wall Street is sort of it's Goodfellas light, in the sense that it is a really good movie, but you're just sick of the people who would call it their favorite movie.
Right. And all their movies are like that, too. All their favorite movies are exactly like that. And it's like, so you just have a type of movie you like. It has nothing to do with general appreciation of cinema. I could get into this some other day. Anyway, before we go, though, I just want to say, have I talked about Garfield's on and off again girlfriend, Arlene, on the show?
You have.
Okay.
But continue.
I continue to be perplexed by this cat with giant red lips, whorish mascara. She's lavender like no cat ever is. She basically is like a sex toy, except she also acts the part of a cat, and then she also does the Garfield thing of lowering her eyelids and looking at us. Anyway, I find it sexually confusing, and I don't know why Jim Davis got all up in that.
She's got a long neck. Okay. And that's only good for one thing, okay? Sliding in a lot of lasagna.
Yeah, right. Some layers. Yeah. Not that fettuccine.
Yeah, she does. Wow. I hadn't really looked at her.
It's very
in a minute,
Miss Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Like red lips. She looks like a madam. You open the door at the Mustang Ranch and she has like a cigarette hanging out in her mouth and she says, "Welcome."
I'd watch that film.
Right.
Where's the Garfield universe actually? Because where's the thing about John and what's going on with Nermal?
Right. No. Well, Nermal is still in Abu Dhabi. I think he has a successful gay life there. He's like a Barry's instructor. But there were a series of Garfield specials in the 80s, like Garfield on the Town, where he like runs away and gets into like urban shenanigans. Anyway, they tried to make him loose and crazy for a while. So just to let you know that is out there.
Yeah. All right. Well, when we're back, keep it. And we are back with our favorite segment of the episode, Keep It. Lewis, what are you angry about this week?
Mine is some traditional stand-up rancor. Just
Okay.
like
Jerry Seinfeld.
right. Oh yeah, who's
Be a real man. Be a man.
Oh my God. Sorry, is that my keep it? Real men is something he's concerned with? So weird. Does anybody seem more rich and less joyous than Jerry Seinfeld? It really is a shocking juxtaposition. Anyway, moving on.
It is. I will just say it's funny to hear anyone like Jerry Seinfeld say, "Where are the real men?" Because you rewatch Seinfeld, aren't most of the jokes about how he's basically faggot coded?
Yeah, right. And how he's like wimpy and like nauseous and sick of everything. Right. Yeah. Yeah, not giving virility, shall we say. Okay. No, it's traditional stand-up in that if I had to take a stage in 2024 and rant about something for 3 minutes, I think this would be what I'd rant about. Guys, keep it to Cybertrucks. I'm sorry. One, let's just talk about the look of them. There's a very famous tweet going around talking about how the look of a Cybertruck, the Tesla strange metallic-looking vehicle, looks like it fell out of a Nintendo 64 GoldenEye instruction booklet, first of all. But secondly, to me, it looks like somebody running out of time in Pictionary trying to draw a car. Just like 3 lines with like circle wheels, and then you guess car, and then you move on to the next card. But also, to me, in person, when you're driving in LA, the thing that is disturbing about them is the scale of them is so strange. You constantly feel like you're going to get in a car accident because it's like close to one side of the road or the other based on where it is in the lane. You don't want to be around. If all cars were that size, I think they would be less problematic. But as such, it's like you're driving around a parade float constantly. And during this, Pride Month, I already am sick of parade floats. I mean, they take up the road and they're strange.
Yeah. I like the Batman-ness of them all.
Sure, there's a light DeLorean quality, but at the same time, it feels like it's a kind of macho fantasy vehicle in that way too. It like taps into sort of these cinematic ideas of big muscle cars without also just doing the work of being a penis-shaped muscle car like we respect. I'm always down for a Corvette.
I love a Corvette. I mean, I love a wait. What's the car in Christine?
Oh, the Plymouth Fury?
Yeah, the Plymouth Fury. Yes, I knew that once because there was a period where I was writing Plymouth Furies into scripts all the time.
Oh, okay. What? Were you
just
payola?
imagining that they were Christine?
Yeah. Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, a vintage Plymouth Fury. Let's bring that movie back. I know we just talked about, reboots and everything, but I think a Christine TV series would be fun.
I actually thought Jodie Foster had a really cool quote about limited series, which is she watched Killers of the Flower Moon. She said, this really should have been an 8-hour limited series where you actually got into the perspectives of all the characters that the movie sort of skimps over. Like it could have been way more kind of journalistic and getting into everybody's head, but instead you sort of got this hodgepodge of perspectives where many weren't fleshed out. But I think she was talking about...
Come on, Jodie.
I know, but she was talking about that Night Country show she was on, which was not good, so sorry.
Oh. Honestly, we should have got that, though, because what Scorsese would do with 8 hours.
Oh, God. He'll throw in like at least an hour and a half tribute to Bob Dylan. Girl will fill the pages.
Yeah. Baby, if he did Ma Rainey's Black Bottom from Martin Scorsese, somehow Bob Dylan inspired Ma Rainey.
Oh, that's just the beginning. He also performed alongside the band at the Last Waltz, right?
How is he? He's not the one directing the Bob Dylan film, is he?
No, I forget who that is, actually. The Timothée Chalamet movie?
That he's running around the city with his sunglasses on, playing this summer.
The Timothée Chalamet Bob Dylan movie, A Complete Unknown, is directed by James Mangold, who did, for example, Girl Interrupted, 2 movies in the
Logan?
X-Men franchise, Copland.
Yeah, I love James Mangold. Great writer and director.
Ira, what is your keep it this week?
My keep it goes to this tweet that I saw, which was about the fact that James Gunn invented the hatred for Scrappy-Doo by making him the villain in the Scooby-Doo movies. And I have to say, that is categorically false because people hated that little runt for years.
All I fucking do is hate this bastard. I hate Scrappy-Doo, and I've hated him in every iteration going back to, because he goes back to, if not the original Scooby-Doo, the second version of it.
79.
In the 70s. And he was certainly in 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, where unfortunately he was not one of the ghosts murdered on air.
So what's interesting about the Scooby-Doo sort of mythos is in 79 the ratings were flagging. And so they had to Cousin Oliver the show, and that means to introduce a character that we've never heard of before who is related to one of the main characters, which gives you the audience sort of an immediate interest and connection with them. Scrappy-Doo comes.
I was going to say quickly, you just brought up Cousin Oliver, which is a Brady Bunch reference. I would say a very famous instance of this is Raven Simone on The Cosby Show. Like, where it's just like, a whole new energy, and she's kind of a cute new personality. Yes, anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and that was Scrappy-Doo on Scooby. He was the younger one. He would sort of pick them up and run into danger instead of being afraid of the ghost like Scooby was. And allegedly he was popular at first, which, of course, the show was for kids.
Right.
But I think that grown adults like who were watching the show at that point, who had grew up with Scooby-Doo, and also you have to remember at this point, cartoons, a big audience for cartoons, especially in the 70s, 80s, up to when we were in college, to be honest, were like adult college students.
Sure.
Or high schoolers. You know, like we watched that shit all the time too. And especially in college, like I would watch Scooby-Doo when I was high. And Scrappy-Doo was just annoying.
What he's the definitive.
And he's always been
he's
annoying.
The definitive annoying cartoon character. I mean, like beyond even someone like Jar Jar Binks. I'm just first of all, he has one catchphrase that's not funny. They'll let me at him.
Puppy power.
Yeah, and then puppy power. And then puppy power. That was so. I could just feel my endorphins leak through me onto the chair. There's just none of me left. Right, and then it's like a lot. It's really loud, and also on those shows, those were the cartoons that would have an added laugh track. So you were supposed to find him amusing, according to the laugh track, and it's like I'm now alienated from this show because obviously it's not funny, and you're trying to hammer home that he's funny, you know. Oh my God, he's unbelievably. I hate his look. I hate the look in his eye. I hate his height. I sound like Chloe Sevigny talking about LA. I'm like, I hate the terrain. I hate the vegetation of Scrappy-Doo.
I will say I did love the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo. And it only had 13 episodes.
Right. No,
which was disappointing.
No, by the way, Vincent Price, if he would take a check doing anything in the 80s. He's like, sure, put me in a booth. I'll start talking to Scrappy-Doo. I don't give a fuck. I'm 1,000,000 years old.
The weird part of the Scooby-Doo franchise is that when you're our age, you have to sort of be like me and Lewis, who love trivia and like sort of like researching the histories of the media that we consume, because otherwise Scooby-Doo is just thrown on in syndication, and when you're watching it, sometimes you'll watch an episode of Where Are You, Scooby-Doo, and then sometimes it'll be 13 Ghosts, and it's like, where did Fred and Velma go?
No, right. Yes, and like the characters that drop out and come back in are very mysterious. Like that they would keep Daphne and not the other two. Like Daphne doesn't even really have a personality. That makes no sense. Pretty girl.
Well,
and I relate that she's always cocked onto one hip, which is how I prefer to stand.
But I feel like by the time you got to 85, when you were trying to make the show cool, right? You have Scrappy-Doo for the younger viewers. You have Daphne because she's sort of the bombshell.
Yeah.
And then you have Shaggy because, you know, he's the stoner and people love laughing at him. And you sort of get rid of the dude with the ascot, the fagocione with the ascot, and you get rid of Velma because she's just like a nerd.
Yeah, I guess. But then they replace them with Flim Flam, which I would love to hear that meeting and put those people all in the fucking Hague. Yeah.
And then when did Scooby's when did Dum Dum show up?
No, see, you're getting into lore I can't even begin to discuss.
He was the stupid Scooby-Doo relative. A lot going on in Hanna-Barbera cartoons, by the way. I feel like that's a whole episode in and of itself and a whole investigative documentary that I would love to watch. But Hanna-Barbera, like Flintstones and Wacky Races, and
Jetsons.
you rewatch those,
Jabberjaw.
and you're just like, who is this character?
No.
And where the fuck did they come from?
They also all kind of seem like offshoots of the same character because almost all of these people were voiced by like 5 people altogether. You know, like Don Messick.
Jabberjaw was Scooby-Doo.
Don Messick is
by the way,
voice who did Scooby-Doo. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Jabberjaw, if you don't know it, he was a shark who played music.
He also
They were in a band.
Yes, and he also was annoying. That was his whole thing. Like he
That was a good theme song, though. Jabber, 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 Jabberjaw.
Right. Oh yeah, please. Kabooby the camel I enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was basically a mix between Scooby-Doo, where they were solving mysteries, and then also Josie and the Pussycats.
Now that's where we peaked. Now that's where it got really good.
Yeah.
Yes. Valerie, now I aspired to her the dignity she brought to that band. You know, Alexandra always threatening shit with her like petty grievances, but Valerie would keep it, you know, rad.
I think what I just always forget about those shows is when you look back at them, because they re-air them in syndication all the time, you assume that they were longer than they were. Like, you look back at a show and it's like, it had 18 episodes.
Oh, right. No. Those would just go away and then yet exist forever. You know, we would just keep watching those fucking shows. And of course, the Josie and the Pussycats movie is good too. But anyway.
Yeah. We need a Jabberjaw movie to make you love him.
Oh God, it's gonna take more than that. I'm gonna need. First of all, you're gonna have to chloroform me to get me to watch the movie. Second of all,
and then you will be. Then you'll be terrorized by Jabberjaw billboards in L.A.
Oh God, when Jabberjaw gets on the robots delivering food on the street, I'll know I have to leave L.A. That's when it's time for me to head to Denver.
All right. That's our episode this week. Thank you to Ladyfag for joining us, and happy Pride.
Keep on doing that gay thing you do, listener.
That gay thing you do is the sequel to that thing you do.
Ooh, I'd love to hear Adam Schlesinger, may he rest in peace. I would love to hear the gay version of that thing you do.
Yeah. Jack Antonoff's going to do the music.
Fuck you.